pandemic has spread faster than any disease in modern history.
Angry mobs roam the city, burning buildings.
Authorities are bracing for more rioting tonight.
He was knocked unconscious. He had some
A citywide emergency has been declared.
The CDC has quarantined the lower Midwestern region of the U.S.
Welcome back folks, today we are continuing with our Resident Evil journey where I set out to replay every single Resident Evil game, from remakes to originals. Previously I covered Resident Evil 2 Remake and I was very excited to talk about its sequel, for which I have a lot of opinions. As always, keep in mind that this video is spoiler heavy, so if you haven't played this or any other Resident Evil game, you have been warned. As you already know, Resident Evil 2 as a remake was done in a fantastic way, a true attention to detail, and Capcom was giving it a lot of justice, which resulted in immense amount of sales and praise by the community. Now a year later, Resident Evil 3 Remake comes along, and well, for me being a huge fan of Jill, it was fun to revisit her story and to escape from Raccoon City. But I remember back then when it was initially announced, I was surprised that Capcom was that fast. Now I do remember an article saying that working in RE Engine was so good that they were able to work on both titles simultaneously, to which I said great, I mean who doesn't like that, and because RE2 was such a slam dunk, I had nothing to worry about, or well, so I thought. As I was going through it, I started wondering that this is not how I remember the original title, because you see, RE3 Remake cut out a lot of content out of it, like a lot, and we will go into detail about it, no worries, but I legit thought Capcom was pulling a fast one because a lot of things that made the original stand out, like Nemesis first of all, became something totally different, and the pacing, branching decisions that influence many things were removed, to the point where back then, you know, when I replayed it again thinking no, I missed something, but you know, it wasn't that. That wasn't the case. That was indeed the game, where for me it felt more like an adaptation of the original than being, you know, a full-fledged remake, where usually you take everything which was good and elevate it further, like they did both for RE2 and RE4. But no, RE3 Remake remained the middle child, the one that I feel like even Capcom probably feels sorry that they haven't done more for, as the community went through the files, data mined everything they could, and indeed they found that this game had so much more planned to it, but you know what happened? Well, Capcom never fully elaborated on it. So the game itself starts off with Jill in her apartment. It has been 2 months since the mansion oopsie, and on the walls we see that Jill has been actively looking into connections between everyone involved in Umbrella, especially as news of weird deaths throughout the city started to spread. Of course, being that Jill is a member of STAR's team, an elite unit in the police force, she had sort of that idea of what was coming, contrary to our boy Leon, who sort of found himself within the city learning the ropes as he was going. Jill was also going through her own nightmares. I mean, who wouldn't after what you had to endure in Arklay Mountains and losing so much of her team already? The story of Stars was a tragic one, but she couldn't even realize that as much as she was investigating Umbrella, well, Umbrella was also doing their own thing, hence our favorite stalker, Nemesis. And oh boy, does the remake go full speed into him. Right as she wakes up, goes into her bathroom, she gets the call that city is going to fall and that everything was going to hell. I'm also sad that we never got that iconic starting scene where cops come, you know, start shooting at zombies and get overwhelmed by the sheer amount, resulting in a series of nightmares for a small boy like me who wasn't ready for it all when I played it for the first time. But all of a sudden, boom, here comes Nemesis right into the apartment. Mission was straightforward, every single stars had to be eliminated. They knew way too much. That's where our chase sequence begins. Now, presentation wise, I mean, it was good. I don't have a problem with Nemesis and the way he looks. He's someone to behold. But just the idea of him coming right away removed another iconic scene from the original. You see, in the classic game, Nemesis appears when Jill reaches RPD, resulting in a scene which, to be honest, initially left me speechless. You can just imagine the sheer horror when he grabs Brad and does his thing. And for Jill, just seeing that instilled pure horror and rage as she sees her friend go down just like that. And I always felt it placed him just at the right moment, creating a perfect atmosphere where as you played, you never know if he was around the corner or not. Although I will say Nemesis sometimes is so busy aura farming that throughout the game he honestly had so many opportunities just to end us incredibly fast, but hey, he was busy yelling stars. But in the remake, after we make our way out, Brad does come for us, and we make our way to Raccoon City downtown, which is going completely nuts. City itself, detail-wise, is nice. I mean, you can see the sheer panic as everyone is trying to escape to wherever they can. Now once we start running with Brad and enter the bar, he holds the door to stop zombies from entering and he gets bitten. That's, as I said, one of my problems. I feel like having Nemesis go after Brad properly would be such a more impactful scene. Of course, we will meet Brad later in RPD when we are there with Carlos, though by, that time he was long gone. But for Brad, he's a real one though. We will never forget him, a true hero. Afterwards, we make our way to an alley, grab a gun, and helicopter pilot tells us to go to the garage roof. And as far as I could find, or well, not find, I don't think we know who the pilot is. But before that, we do meet Dario Rosso, a tragic character in my opinion, because in the original we know he lost his family and he was a salesman who wanted to be a novelist, but well, road brought him to Raccoon City and it couldn't be a worse place to be. He decides to hide in a container as that's a safe place, but yeah, that never turns out well for him because in the original, zombies do make it inside. Here though, well, it would be either zombies or just the bomb that would sort him out. Jill wanted to get him to safety, but no avail, he did not believe her. We then run to the parking garage, fight a bit, and once we reach the roof, Heli comes, but guess who also comes? Our good friend Nemesis. I still don't understand what actually hit the tail of the heli. I slowed it down, I did not actually see a rocket from Nemesis or anything else. Maybe he threw a rock or something, but in any case, we actually had to, run for our life. We jump into a car and run right at him. I won't lie, this moment where he is in the fire, fully revealed, just approaching, slowly to us was pretty good. Then Carlos comes, someone who's going to be, well, one of our good friends in the future. He shoots a rocket, hits him and brings him down. Carlos is a member of UBCS, or Umbrella Biohazard Countermeasure Service. Their job is to, well, counter any possible biohazard oopsies, but let's face it, it's just Umbrella's private military to, in case, if needed, rescue high-profile Umbrella employees. For Jill, this was awkward, as she already knew what Umbrella is capable of, but Carlos didn't really know. They didn't tell them anything. Even in the animated series Dead Island, we know how all Umbrella soldiers ended up in Raccoon City. We start moving down into the subway where we meet Mikhail Victor, platoon commander who already knew about special tactics and rescue service people, including Jill. It's not fully explained why here, but I guess he must have been briefed about all of them. I mean, STARS are an elite unit, they had a reputation, so of course, especially working for Umbrella, it probably crossed his desk. In any case, now we have a problem, we have to move, but there is no power in subway, rail lines cannot move. So Jill has to go, restore them as their team was already pretty much destroyed, even Mikhail was pretty wounded. We can also see a cool map for those interested how all of this was very close to RPD, the iconic location from RE2, and basically whatever was happening within these two games, it was sort of happening within that part of the city, at least in some extent. From the newspaper, we also get a good insight into what was happening before all of this, as rats already carried the T-virus into the sewers. We also see that on September 25th, there are already reports that this was actually a third strange incidence of zombies being, here and there, but nobody knew anything. Because you see, Spencer Memorial Hospital was already getting patients, which we will see later in the game and why that place is so wrecked inside. After moving up to the street level, there are locations and things we already know, putting out the fire with a hose, visiting toy store and all of that. As I already knew about those locations, of most hidden items, I did zoom quickly to get all of the gems as we will need them for shotgun upgrade and hip pouch later in the subway. Again, as I said, moving through the Moon's Donuts, drugstore and all of that, but man, a lot of this was cut from the original. Initially, the stage was a lot longer to go through. I did do as much as I could because I knew later on I will activate Nemesis sequence, which, beats the purpose of Nemesis, as if you play this or well the original, you can really prep for him easy. Once we put out the fire, we start moving towards the electrical substation, get the bolt cutters, shoot some zombies, some we avoid. But to be honest, as I play this on standard difficulty because, well, I had to go slowly to capture, well, cinematic footage for this gameplay, you get so much ammo that I never thought of actually conserving it. But shooting in the head helps, and it's a shame they removed detachable limbs from the, RE3 remake, which RE2 actually had. Like, there is no point in shooting them anywhere else besides the head, and because they also added the dodge button with good timing, you get much more leeway even to avoid everything. After going into the garage, we meet another UBCS member, Murphy Seeker. He says that he is not infected, so he could be saved. Maybe, but of course, Nikolai comes and shoots him. It's a nice introduction to a character who is driven by greed and self-preservation. He even says that stars are soft, so that's why they are gone now. Sorry, but I don't like him one bit. But that's thanks to Neil Newbon, who we know from Baldur's Gate, and he also plays Heisenberg in RE Village. Fantastic voice actor. After moving towards the substation to turn on generators, we are greeted by Drain Deimos, mutated parasites who made their nest there. Navigating them can be rough, but where there is a will, there is a way. To be honest, the only place I felt unease going through the entire game was that particular sequence. Not even the hunters later on gave me that feeling. That's where we also get the lockpick, single most important tool in this remake and well, in the original. Once we activate it, we completely destroy their nest. Now it's time to go back to control office to route our path out of there. Of course, Nemesis comes to Aura Farm again, but nothing like a grenade cannot sort out. You see, you should down him as he drops a crate that gives you pistol upgrades. We route the path and now it's time to run, because guess what? Nemesis comes back again and again, takes a grenade as I really needed that crate. But that's the problem when it's so sequenced that original did it much better in my opinion, since you were still able to sort of navigate and decide your path, but more on that once I cover the original. Especially since when you close that door, there is no going back, like at all, you are locked out. Once we go down, we regroup with Carlos, with Nikolai and Tyrell come. He really doesn't like her, figures he is a betrayer after all. Then Jill plays the hero to give them the time to start, and we actually begin escaping with the sequenced Nemesis attack, go through the vents and ultimately end up in the sewers, much more sooner than the original game. Sewers here were sort of chill for me. We meet a couple of hunter gammas, not a huge issue, just a one flame round from a grenade launcher downs them. Honestly, there is no need to waste any other type of ammo, or you can simply just, dodge and avoid them. And yes, Umbrella did have their little places here as well. Even Leon was surprised when he found out they could just, have a lab for testing in RE2 in the sewers of the city, but he was a rookie after all. He had no idea how deep Umbrella influence goes, especially within their own city. After a quick detour, we unlock the final door and move up and see. This moment is so funny to me as that's when Nemesis comes again. You see, right in this moment, Nemesis grabs Jill's head, and if you were not aura farming tyrant, he could just crush her head. That's it, but he had a cool flamethrower he wanted to show us. That's also where another sequence begins, as we run through the building as he burns it down, and that's where the first proper boss fight with Nemesis begins. The most proper way to do this is just to kite him around the crates and shoot his gas tank. No point in doing anything else. I swear it's almost as he was toying with her too much. I remember the original Nemesis being much more aggressive and not really caring too much besides putting her out of her misery. Also, never shoot Nemesis directly as he is too fast, just aim for the legs, especially with the grenade launcher, you know, after stunning him, go for the tank, but he bites the concrete again and we win. Afterwards, we proceed to another part of the street, and this street we remember from the RE2 remake specifically as this is the exit from the RPD garage where Leon and Ada come, you know, going into Kendo's gun shop. We of course meet our good friend Kendo, who we know already has infected daughter and didn't want to leave her. I mean, shame, just like Brad, he was a true OG and a friend. He knows Jill because he is again a gunsmith, and you know, as a STARS member you would visit him a lot. So he is an important character for both Jill and Leon. In RE9 we know how much PTSD actually Leon gets when he revisits Kendo's shop. Of course, after moving through the back alley, guess who also has a new weapon to show us? Nemesis just got his iconic rocket launcher, so we have to avoid him. But with a dodge system, it was a piece of cake. But again, this is the moment where he actually shoots the head of the toy uncle and it goes down towards us. Like, I mean, I like that moment, you know, it was nice, props to that. Carlos helps her again as he drops a few mines so Nemesis gets slowed down. It was actually a good clutch from Carlos, he was very smart on how to navigate him in the first place. We go in, Carlos and Jill separate as Tyrell and he go to find the scientist, Nathaniel Bard, who did develop the vaccine for T-virus, but more on that later. Now Mikhail was already getting suspicious that Nikolai was the one who doomed their team because of course he was locking the gates and he was actually just taking out the team because he had another plan. Now of course Nikolai escapes as he does, and I mean, look, most of these Umbrella guys here are just soldiers. They do want to help people. They only know so much even though they work for Umbrella. Umbrella did not tell them about the most secret stuff which was happening and why Umbrella was doing everything which they were doing. That's also where we switch to Carlos, who is much more action oriented with his assault rifle, and we go into RPD, and sadly that's where we meet Brad, who probably wanted to make his way back to the, you know, police station, but we have to down him as he has the STARS card we need for some items. It's not mandatory, but yeah, if you want additional items you might as well shoot him. Game also ties that in with the RE2 remake as he was the one who bit Marvin because, well, Marvin hesitated. I mean, at least it's a nice way to tie in both of these stories because they were adapting them for their, well, remake universe. Also, Carlos arrives in RPD before Leon and leaves before that, as we are the ones who blew up that wall, which activates the hot steam that, well, as Leon we have to disable, so it's a very nice storytelling. Keep in mind that most of RPD is closed down, it's not as open as in the previous game, which makes sense as it's a shorter sequence. Also, lickers of course are there, but we can take them out easily. Marvin is nowhere to be seen though, he was probably on the right side of the building hiding out. Once we reach the STARS office, we get a call from Nathaniel Bard, and he tells us to go to the hospital to save him. But that's also where we find out that Jill is in trouble and Mikhail sacrificed himself and Nikolai was pretty much a bad guy. So game jumps back at Jill down at the train and we reach the Clock Tower Plaza, which was also heavily cut from the game, like it's nowhere to be seen properly, which was a shame. But then of course another attack by Nemesis comes where he is in his second form. We also get the mine grenades that we can place on a building, bring Nemesis down and shoot that stupid tyrant in the face once again. That's also where Nemesis shoots one of his thingies and actually infects Jill. We barely escape and Carlos finds out that Jill is pretty much going to be a goner if he hadn't arrived. Of course, Nikolai did appear again, not only because he was after Nathaniel Bard, he was also collecting the combat data from Nemesis to sell to, well, someone else. Carlos brings her to the hospital and that's where we play as Carlos again. Honestly, Spencer Memorial was one of the better locations in the remake as it does say so much about how the infection was progressing. I mean, the poor doctors did not stand a chance as both hunters and zombies were wrecking the place inside out. You can even find notes from doctors, you know, who were dealing with so much stress as there were so many patients that they just could not save. So they were trying their best. And even though they were sort of Umbrella employees, again, none of them know anything about Nothing. So yes, this is another Umbrella location, as Spencer Memorial is linked to Spencer Foundation, which is ultimately Umbrella, hence the nest facility we will go down in later on. To be honest, I think this hospital sequence shines the best on higher difficulties, where you don't really have so much ammo and they can take a lot of damage, as tight spaces make it hard to work around zombies even with Carlos' punches and his rifle. But eventually we make it to Nathaniel Bart's room, which, guess what, he was already visited by Nikolai. He was searching for the cure to sell. Also, Carlos learns a lot about Umbrella there, that basically they're causing all of this. And even though they ordered to, Nathaniel Bart to develop a vaccine, they wanted it gone because if the word gets out that this was Umbrella's doing, their company would immediately collapse. It was all planned. Even in Resident Evil Degeneration animated film, we know they lobbied for the strike on Raccoon City to hide it. And because animated films are canon to the universe, it was all connecting really well. Corrupt senators that worked for Umbrella helped it. There was just too much evidence, as that was their corporate town after all, so it had to go. But we do grab the cure for Jill, and that's where the hospital is completely surrounded by zombies and our defense begins. It's another fun part of the game. I honestly had so much ammo at that point that I just went into full John Wick mode to eliminate and hold out while Tyrell was sorting out, the rest of the stuff, trying to close the blinds. After placing the explosives, we blow up the entrance, or well, the entire single part of that hospital, while in the original, the entire building sort of blows up, so that's another change. I also sort of prefer the look of the hospital in the original more than here personally, but at least all of the stories we find out and just how they presented the environmental design was pretty good. But after Carlos learns that Missile is going to strike, he goes to find a cure, to try and basically do something, and he says to Tyrell to try to negotiate that they don't blow up the city, which was futile anyway. That's where Jill wakes up, has another nightmare of seeing Carlos turn, but once she properly wakes up, she goes through the hospital. We also get a new weapon, Lightning Hawk. This is my favorite gun in the remake, as you must conserve it for Nemesis' final fight later. Very recommended for the first stage of that final fight, and honestly, no point in wasting it on anyone else, at least if you're playing on that specific difficulty. But in any case, we found out that there is an underground facility there, or Nest 2, which is replaced with that factory, which in the original is where the endings happen. So another big cut from Capcom, sadly. That one disappointed me the most when the remake originally came out. Because just coming to that factory, going through the park, getting attacked by crows and everything else, I think it was sort of presenting the game in a much more, how would I say, intense way than the remake actually did. But once we go into the nest, we see Nikolai is already there, so we have to find 3 fuses to get to the elevator to go after him. The entire sequence here with, I guess, the warehouse of the nest was fine, I mean, nothing crazy. I already knew the location, so I ran past it relatively quickly before we start moving to the lower levels of the lab. Nemesis appears again, and sadly that's where he also gets Tyrell, who was trying to get out with us, but we needed to make the cure itself, we just needed to try and save the city in that way, so we run through it to synthesize the cure. Honestly, I'm also kind of feeling sad for Tyrell. I mean, most of these guys who were actually just there to try to save the people, I think Umbrella was counting that none of them were actually going out, and even if they did get out, I mean, their fate was already sealed. Nothing, not even a single truth, could escape Raccoon City. We also see the lab where tyrants and hunters are created. That's why hunters were able to even be in the hospital itself. And yes, this is also our infamous Mr. X, the tyrant. Usually these tyrants are placed as security, with incredible strength and endurance. There is only so much you can do against them, but Nemesis is a form of a tyrant with a lot more intelligence and ability to use advanced weapons and have tactical awareness, which other variants don't have. because Nemesis, or well T103, is made by Umbrella Eurobranch, which is infused by the NE Alpha type, or well the Nemesis Alpha Parasite. Umbrella was always trying to perfect them, but keep in mind, BOWs or bioorganic weapons are only as good as they can be taught and controlled to expand their capabilities, but they are very, very expensive to produce. But that parasite can be seen on heads of zombies that Nemesis actually imbues them with. The most successful was the NE Gamma type, which is our good Dr. Victor Gideon from RE9. You can see he is a lot more intelligent and capable than any other variant, truly an ultimate version of that program. After getting the vaccine, Nikolai shows up and takes it from us because, well, it's worth a lot. But as we were going after him, Nemesis jumps in, so Nikolai uses that opportunity to also break the vaccine and get the combat data to aid, the further research, as just collecting that data, how it behaves, is actually a lot more valuable than anything, more than the cure itself, especially for the highest bidder. The final Nemesis fight was incredibly intense, but with the help of Carlos and some well-placed shots, we bring him down, and Carlos uses that opportunity to drown him in acid. But you see, the parasite evolves, making it into its final form. That looks a bit different than the original, much bigger in size, but with the help of a railgun, we were able to defeat him. It wasn't that dangerous, as shooting his weak spots does stun him, so we can actually put the batteries in and deal the final blow once and for all.
Come on! Next time, take the fucking hit!
Afterwards, we run back to roof, where Carlos went to stop Nikolai, but Nikolai was ready for him. Although he did not realize that Carlos is much more capable fighter, so he manages to put him in a position where Jill can actually shoot him. Nikolai never actually reveals to Jill who he was working for, because that wasn't only the Umbrella. Some say it was the Connections, an organization that played a bigger role in later Resident Evil games, especially in RE9, and presumably will also play a big role in Resident Evil 10. But in any case, Carlos and Jill fly out of Raccoon City in the final moment as the thermobaric missile hits and evaporates the city and everything in it. Also, I'm gonna say the ending sequence, or well, the cinematic, I think in the original was a little bit better because we see a bunch of stuff getting destroyed, and we also sort of see RPD getting destroyed, which I guess was retconned, for RE9, because in Resident Evil 9, once we arrive to the RPD, it's sort of standing in its place. Also, as I said in the original, there are many more endings and differences to what happens, as Barry Burton appears in the best ending, Jill's friend and a member of STARS who flies them out. But here in the remake, he is nowhere to be seen at all, and Remake only has one version of its ending, sadly. So with everything completed, honestly, even though RE3 Remake was a fun title to play, compared to RE2 and RE4 Remake, it received the worst treatment in my opinion, hence the middle child problem. I kind of feel bad that they haven't put out as much love into it as with the rest. I think even Capcom did not realize at the time how big remakes will be, and sadly it could have been much better. A mistake that was fixed later on, as I said with RE4, by providing a complete experience, but RE3 definitely deserved more. But for the complete experience, branching storyline, more modes, and well, the full story, original is a must play. I actually cannot wait to cover it properly so we can see why, this feels much better than the remake itself. It's also a much shorter game than other remakes. Took me about, I think, 4 hours and 20 minutes, and that's of course as I already knew about what to do, but I was trying to go slowly to really see all of the details it has and prepare for this video. But you tell me down below, what do you think about this? How was your experience? And as always, if you enjoyed this, consider liking and subscribing for more, because next Resident Evil game to cover will be for Remake. Don't worry, RE9 video is coming, but that one will be special, so I need more time to do it. Join our community on Twitter and Discord. Huge thanks to my Patreon supporters, and I will see you soon as we continue with the full Resident Evil experience. Bye bye.